here to talk about an existential crisis, and more importantly, an energy transformation that we've all gone through over the last 50 years, and my own personal journey throughout this energy crisis and the existential crisis that we've gone through, and my lived experiences through that. So let me just first take us back to 1900 in New York City. Yes, it is a picture of horses and manure. Why am I showing you this? Because this is the time where New York was going through a significant amount of prosperity. By the 1870s, there was close to about 150 million type of horse and carriage rides that was going on, and close to about 150,000 horses on the road. All this meant something really bad, which is more than 100,000 tons of manure that just kept collected in New York City every year. And imagine, and these horses tend to defecate a lot. So if you do think that this is bad, imagine when it rains. It was really, really bad. So clearly there was an issue, and something needed to get done. So we have a problem. What did happen during that time was there's a small light of glimmer of hope. There was actually a car which found a way to kind of remove all the manure and the horse problem that the city was facing. We'll talk about that in a minute later. What is the new manure? As you can imagine, carbon dioxide is our new manure. We as humans have started treating skies as open sewers and started actually emitting carbon dioxide in every possible way that we want. Pre-industrial era, 1950s, we looked at that benchmark, close to about 5.6 gigatons of carbon dioxide as our benchmark. Within 1975, we are about 3 times. 88, we are about 4 times. And today, we are about 7 times. So these things have incredible amount of reasons and complexes because of why these got created. But if you were to think about breaking it down, as most of them have spoken about before, a third of it comes from energy. Energy is really about the kind of fossil fuel choices, the coal, the oil, and all sort of electrification that we go through. A third of it comes from transport, cars, aviation, trains, all those things contribute a significant amount of carbon dioxide. And of course, there's the others, everything from water to mining to agriculture. Now, my own personal journey saw me jumping onto this fossil track in the beginning. As any other engineer that just graduated, obviously I took the big job, the Schlumberger, the GE, just went on to just work for them, clearly drilling oil and polluting the earth. But these things have significant consequences, as you can imagine. More than 100 million people live in areas that's only 1 meter above sea level. Just imagine the entire Mumbai or Chennai going down just because of sea level rising. That's the impact that we have. 7 out of 10 worst wildfires, forest fires, happened in California in the last decade alone. Every single tropical storm, which is a minor little storm, turns out to be a massive hurricane all over, each causing about $21 billion worth of damage. And imagine that's almost the kind of tragedy that Chennai and Gujarat went through every single time a hurricane happens. Now, this doesn't mean that it's all bad, because the growth happens because of electrification, as you can imagine, and electrification can be done responsibly. And that's what the renewables started doing. 2016 was actually a very important year where actually we tipped the scales of having more renewable energy, investments in renewable energy, than we did for fossil. So what did I do in my own personal journey? Clearly, I just packed my bags, left a really cushy job in GE in America, moved my family back to India to set up wind and solar power plants. That was a very nice welcome back to India, as you can imagine. It's very complicated to actually move back and try to do these things, trying to understand the land and the villagers and all of this stuff. But it was a great journey. Net result of it all, by the time we got done, we actually powered more than 100,000 homes in different parts of the country using clean, renewable energy like wind and solar. Renewables are not the panacea for everything. They come with their own challenges. Very simply put, the sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time. But unfortunately, we turn our lights on whenever we want, and there's got to be a way to support that. So what this does is either a scarcity, meaning there's a blackout because there's a load that's there, but there is no power to supply it, or you have curtailment, which is waste, where effectively what happens is that you have massive amount of energy produced, but it's not being used. So clearly, there's a little bit of a mismatch between demand and supply, and that needs to get solved. One of the ways that we solved it, or tried to solve it, is looking at digitization and artificial intelligence. There's a lot that's spoken about AI, but the truth of the matter is, we all looked at it and said, if I can order a pizza for $10 or how much ever rupees we have to order, and we know everything about the pizza, when it left the store, when it's coming on the way, when it's going to arrive, but yet we spend millions of dollars on these assets, put them way out there, but we don't know anything about them. So we said, why don't we just bring all the consumer technology and the advancements that we've had into a very digitally primitive industry like the energy industry. We're not a digital native industry, we're a very digital primitive industry. And that's exactly what we did. So we stood up a digitization company where effectively what we did is took close to about, by the time we got done, we had about 100 gigawatts on our platform, and about 5% of the asset optimization we provided. That effectively meant we were able to power close to about 1 million homes without putting a single metal on the ground and not damaging Mother Earth. So that's something that we felt very good about, how digitization can actually play an impact in renewable and low carbon future. One thing is about forecasting, but another thing is about firming this energy. You can forecast and say that you're not going to have a sun because there's an overcast day, but then people are still going to turn the light on. And that's really where energy storage came into play. Energy storage, quite simply, is being able to store the electrons when you're providing them, and then being able to supply them at a cost that makes sense. We've had a significant amount of this cost that prohibited from this technology being used. If you look at the last 10 years, it's just gone through a massive amount of change. The prices have come down close to about 90%. And that's a big change in 10 years. Let me give you a comparison. Today, you see solar panels everywhere. Solar panels got to this 90% drop in 20 years' time. And it had to get to that 90% drop for it to get massively adopted. And that's what energy storage is going through right now in just about 10 years' time. But again, you obviously cannot just solve a problem and create another problem. So if you use the wrong materials to build these storage, you're going to create another unintended consequences. So what we ended up doing is building storage using commodity materials, not only just using commodity materials and not using conflict minerals, but more importantly, making sure they're recyclable at the end of life. And during the course of the time that they're getting used, we made sure that they have very, very low carbon usage in terms of water, electricity, et cetera. So they effectively are using materials like zinc and sodium. So I use zinc to make these batteries, and that's what's helped us actually combat the low carbon nature that we have to have. Now, so just coming back to wrap up. So we did have a problem. There was one little car that was there, and there was tons of horses, 150,000 horses and 150,000 horses around this area. But then, of course, in about 13 years' time, if you take a look at the picture of what happened in the same street, there was one horse and carriage, and everything else was filled with the cars. I don't intend to imply that cars are going to solve all the problem, but what I intend to imply is that the human capacity to solve problems within a short amount of time is just amazing. If you look at our own sources of how we've just transformed, look at the energy transformation. We started with wood, then went to oil, then went to coal. From coal, now we've gone to renewables. But every single one of these transformations happened within about 10 to 15 years. But the important thing to remember is Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. Because people actually figured out that there's something needs to get done and the transformation needs to happen. That's what made them change. So with that, I do want to say that cars may be the solution, but not the cars that you're thinking about. It's the circular economy. It's about the recycling, the composting, all of the stuff that you need to do to make sure end of life is critical. It's about digitization. Data is everywhere, and there's ways to use them for low carbon solution. Renewables. All of us can make personal choices of renewables. We can put solar on our roof, and we can obviously support and invest in businesses that support these things. And storage, last but not least. Storage is here to stay, and that's going to be the Swiss Army knife of what the grid needs, and that's what it's going to solve. And I use the word long duration, because long duration means more than 10 hours, because that's what's needed to enable more renewables. So when I look at the journey, I don't know if the energy transformation shaped my life, or I shaped energy transformation in my own little small way. But I can tell you there's one pivotal moment in my life that changed me for years to come. That was the year 1988. It happened because my father passed away in a hospital in Chennai, in a private hospital when he was going through a dialysis. And he passed away because actually there was a power failure that lasted more than 10 hours. And we couldn't do anything to save him, and he died the very same day. I want to believe that I work in renewable energy, I work in this energy space, and I also work in long duration energy storage. Maybe it's not a coincidence, and maybe it is a coincidence, I don't know. But people tend to connect the dots looking backward, not looking forward. But perhaps if we had these storage devices in 1988, maybe he could be sitting here and cheering me on. But I hope even if he's not here today, he's cheering me on from somewhere. So anyway, Dad, this one's for you. Thank you.